trying to figure out where to
Good morning. Oh, let's do that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. So welcome to this on-site and online worship service at the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. For those who are here on site, I do encourage you not to sit on the row closest to the outside of the tent because we're getting a little rain sloshing off the sides, and it's a bit like a waterfall at times, so sit more to the inside. For those of you who are watching online, I'm sure you're warm and comfortable. Enjoy. I'm Reverend J. Brooks. My pronouns are she, her. I'm one of the ministers here at Shelter Rock, along with Reverend Jennifer Brower and our lead minister, Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore. Today we continue our October worship and learning theme, cultivating relationships. We have two special guests today who will help us consider our relationship with the natural world. Daniel Lawlor and Ali Tharp are co-directors of the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth. Daniel, whose pronouns are he, him, is a UU minister who joins us on site from his home near Brooklyn. Ali, whose pronouns are she, her, or they, them, lives in Austin, Texas, and she's come all the way from Austin to be with us today. She's traveled east this weekend not only to be here, but also in preparation for the protests in the District of Columbia next week as part of the People versus Fossil Fuels Week of Action. So I'm delighted that both of these wonderful UU leaders are here with us today. From their perspective as Unitarian Universalist leaders who are deeply engaged in the work of the UU Ministry for Earth, Daniel and Ali are conscious of the need to cultivate daily habits and spiritual practices that will sustain them in this time of unexpected heartache, appreciating the joys in life and supporting one another through life's sorrows. We human beings are both part of the earth and uniquely responsible for it. May we learn amidst the challenges we face to lament, slow down, and connect.
Good morning. It is an honor and it is energizing, even on a cold and blustery day, to be here in worship with you. And whether you are in the third row or you're tuning in on Facebook, in this moment, this morning, we are connected. I offer these words from Mary Oliver, morning poem. Every morning, the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to high branches, and ponds appear like black cloth on which are painted islands of lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trail for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there's still somewhere deep within you a spirit shouting that the earth is exactly what is wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered every morning. Whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray, each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered every morning. And in that spirit of interdependence, we consider the chalice, the symbol of our faith, conceived and created in a time that was stormy, not just in weather, but in politics. In the midst of the Second World War, this symbol, the light in the night, became the symbol of our faith. And we light it today in the rain to remind us we are connected to generations before and generations to come. It is good to be with you.
This congregation's words of affirmation express the purpose and intention for our gathering in religious community. Many here and online know the words by heart. Others do not. To keep us all together as one community, we'll say the words of affirmation as call and response. I'll say a line, you repeat it. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament. And service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace. To seek knowledge in freedom. To serve human need. This do we affirm and covenant with each other. To serve human need. We eat from fields we have not planted. We drink from wells we have not dug. And this is acceptable as long as each in our own way we contribute to the health and well-being of the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. Today, we continue our special collection for Upholding Humanity, an interfaith organization working to support Afghan refugees on Long Island. This organization's members include the Long Island Islamic Center, the Evangelical Lutheran Church, the Episcopal Diocese, the Ethical Humanist Society of Long Island, and a number of Jewish congregations, including our friends and neighbors at the Reconstructionist Synagogue close by on Plandown Road. We're not passing a collection basket this morning, but baskets will be available at the back of the tent as you leave if you're here on site, and all of us on site and online can donate, as we have these many months, through various online donation methods. Go to our website, UUCSR.org, and choose Giving and Special Collection, or go to PayPal and donate to UUCSR.org, or just send a text to 516-210-2528, 516-210-2528. Generosity is one of our cherished values as we seek to grow in spirit and in truth.
Good morning. Our reading today is from the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman, a 20th century mystic and social prophet. A mentor to Martin Luther King Jr., Thurman blended the justice traditions of the Black social gospel and an interfaith ecological spirituality. This meditation is called How Good It Is to Center Down. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our mind seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashings, with noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. With full intensity we seek, as the quiet passes, a fresh sense of order in our living, a direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning in our chaos. We look at ourselves in this waiting moment, the kinds of people we are. The question persists, what are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our day? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Where do we put the emphasis? And where are our values focused? For what end do we make sacrifices? Where is my treasure, and what do I love most in life? What do I hate most in life, and to what am I true? Over and over, the questions beat in upon the waiting moment. As we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. our questions are answered, our spirits refreshed, and we move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down.
Good morning. How good it is to center down. Slow down, lament, and connect. Slow down, lament, and connect. Slow down, lament, and connect. I need to tell myself that, especially in the work of environmental justice, community work, community passion, because so much pulls us, whether it's through the news that we're consuming or the demands from that friend who always has one more committee or one more action or one more thing to do. So much is pulling us to move so quickly, and yet I've found if I don't slow down, when I do show up, I'm giving from a well that is barely full. And the joy that I hope to bring in a space, I can't quite do it. Perhaps your experiences are different. I hope they are. But for me, what I've found is that our journey invites us to take a breath, a pause, and to name that as a good thing, a sacred thing. This morning, I want to invite us just for a moment to be present and then to consider a lesson from the mystic we heard from earlier, Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman, who has a whole history of interacting with our tradition, Unitarian Universalism, in the 50s and 60s. And then I want us to come back to this moment, because our congregations have the freedom to imagine the year of religious faith and create traditions. And perhaps we as a faith community can create traditions to help us slow down, lament, and connect. You would know this better than I, but this space we are even worshiping did not always exist. In fact, this tent, I'm sure, was not imagined in this space 3 years ago. So much changes. 50 years ago, these beautiful stones on these RE structures, they weren't here yet. Hundreds of years ago, this land was not called Shelter Rock. The Lenape people who called this home called it the area of small stones. Small stones. As we are gathered in worship in this space, I hear birds, I hear the rustle of leaves in the wind, the drip of water from trees going back into the earth. And the beauty in our tradition is that source, that principle that says we are part of the interdependent web of all life of which we are part. Howard Thurman has changed my life, and I never met him. And he was a mystic who taught many people in the 20th century. He and his wife, Sue, mentored college students. The famous individuals they mentored were Martin Luther King Jr. and Jesse Jackson. But there are so many individuals doing community work around the U.S. who had this quiet relationship with this couple that really dedicated themselves to mentorship. They were from the segregated South. Thurman himself was from Daytona, Florida. Grew up in a time when evil was not just de facto, but by law. And yet, in that context, with the confidence and support of his family and what he saw in the natural world, from childhood, he developed this sense that creative people, creative beings will always resist oppression because inherently we are creative. And we live and breathe and thrive through dialogue and connection. Resisting what should have happened, Thurman graduated high school, college, went to seminary. He was a chaplain at Howard University. He broke barriers and became the first African-American dean at Boston University. Boston in the 1950s, as one can imagine, was not known for racial tolerance. But in the same city at the same time, and I find this fascinating, Malcolm X as a young man, Martin Luther King as a seminary student, and Howard Thurman as a dean, all were in the same space. And in that context, in Boston, is when Thurman started to get connected to the Unitarian movement, more as a friend. But he gave the Ware Lecture, which is a famous lecture at the Unitarian General Assembly in the 1950s, and he called on our denomination, our predecessors, to be apostles of sensitiveness. He said, with the freedom of your faith movement, with the interfaith possibilities that you hold, we have a unique role in the ecology of American spirituality. We have the gift to be apostles of sensitiveness, to recognize that beyond the different religious traditions, there is space for dialogue and action. Because for Thurman, congregations of all types were called to be spaces to galvanize the spirit. And sometimes he's misunderstood, and people hear that as kind of like a positive psychology. I mean, not that it's not, but he didn't just want us to think better, but to act differently. In fact, Thurman hated neighborhood churches. He hated the term because in a segregated society, a neighborhood church that only focuses on the neighborhood will serve segregated purposes, regardless of the good intentions. And I think you would be excited by the vision that you cultivate at Shelter Rock, where the resources here are not just for Manhasset, but sent to communities from Oakland to Maine to cultivate justice in multiple contexts. Thurman believed that slowing down in worship spaces gave us time to grieve and to connect. Not to avoid our feelings, but to go on journeys of meditation and recommitment. He would say, in the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading sense of the holy, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in good times or in tempests, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. In our time, in our moment, we have the ability as Unitarian Universalists to consider the religious calendar of the year, to even imagine new holidays. At Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth, especially under Ali's vision, we've tried to seed plant a way of conceiving the spring season ahead as spring for change, and use the anchor points of World Water Day, Earth Day, and Biodiversity Day as something that can be claimed not just as an environmental consciousness, but as religious holidays in our space, where we imagine new music to support the climate justice movement, where we create litanies of lament for the loss of so many species that people won't see, to grieve perhaps what we have not been able to stop, but also to commit and recommit year after year to doing what we can in the context we are in. The beauty of Unitarian Universalist tradition is we have a whole trajectory of deeds, not creeds. It's what you do that counts. And we have a blessing, an opportunity in the decade ahead to add to this long tradition of direct activism, the cultivation of what can restore us to do that good work. My friend Katie McQuaige-Lucas, she is a UU theologian to me. She is a ministerial intern at the UU Church of Reading, but talks about the 7 wells. And she says, are we digging 7 wells and none of them touch the water? Or do we make times in the year to dig one deep well which will touch the water that we can share? I've found a habit, it might not work for you, but for me, of just engaging with a poem and building time to listen and look at it. The Mary Oliver poem we read at the opening, I read last spring and I rejected it. I was like, this is too hopeful. I don't like this. I was in a space where I was like, I need, more anger. Like, I need to be pushed. And then when I reread that poem about a month ago, I almost fell over. And something inside me had changed. I think I had a different space to read it. But I heard the beauty about the lilies. And a good friend encountered me and said, Dan, you seem so much happier. And some of it is making the moments to slow down, to restore ourselves, to spend time with those we care about, to read and preserve space, to be by ourselves or be with loved ones. I've found that's a gateway to restoration, a gateway to wholeness, a gateway to showing up in a space and being energized. It has been exciting and motivating to meet so many congregants and climate activists who care about our earth and care about our faith. And I think the more we can do to slow down with one another, the more we can do to make space for that grief and anger to be held and healed and supported, that's what will give us the gift to connect with one another. And through that connection, through the litanies we make, through the songs you create, through the advocacy you do, and the resources you show up with, and yourself in the room with your burnt out friend or niece or nephew or colleague, through that work of restoration, we can be with one another and accompany one another through whatever challenges are ahead. And in the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of the holy, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in good times or in tempests, we will not forget what we have committed our lives to. May you slow down in the week and months to come. May it be so. The Reverend Hyun Hwan Kim was the pastor at the First Unitarian Church in Los Angeles and founded one of the first Korean American fellowships in our movement. And one of his prayers, he was a humanist, one of his meditations was that the life of humanity may it always be preparing the life of tomorrow. So today, as we encounter and cultivate and are with one another, we are seed planting for moments unknown and stories unwritten. May it be so, and may we seed plant well.
And now we'll extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into all the world.